You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This podcast episode is brought to you by Longsdale Publishing. Is your program seeking ways to assess your students' college readiness? Does your program need a tool to document the effectiveness of your program? Longsdale Publishing is excited to offer the Strategic Learning Assessment, a 20-minute online assessment that provides recommendations and strategies to improve academic performance across 11 learning areas: communication, critical thinking, effective learning strategies, focus and concentration, growth mindset, persistence, seeking help, sense of belonging, stress management, test preparation, and time management. For as little as $3 per student, the Strategic Learning Assessment identifies strengths and areas for growth, along with tailored recommendations for each learning area. Want a complimentary sample account for yourself and 5 students? Contact Longsdale Publishing at 727-389-8026. Again, that number is 727-389-8026. Or visit our website for more information at www.longsdale.com. That website again is www.longsdale.com. Longsdale Publishing, your partner in student success. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 7, Episode 10. I am your host, Juan Rivas. Before we begin, some community announcements. Trio Nation, be sure to call your congressional representatives to defend the Trio programs. The Trump administration is seeking to eliminate the Trio programs in their latest budget proposal. Take action now by spreading the word and contacting your congressional representatives. Let's defend Trio. In today's episode, we have Dr. Christabelle Dragoo, Trio alum and director of the Trio McNair Scholars Program at the University of Oregon. Dr. Dragoo is on the podcast to share her own life experience, her Trio journey, her college experience, her role as a director for the Trio McNair program, and the impact she makes on her community. Coming up in just a bit, Dr. Christabelle Dragoo. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters: Angelica Vialpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lemaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and thetriostore.com, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business that serves the Trio community and want to sponsor the podcast, we have different sponsorship packages available. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. Your support helps lift Trio voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is LETSTALKTRIO@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Dr. Christabelle Dragoo, Trio alum and director of the Trio McNair Scholars Program at the University of Oregon. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is an alum of the Trio Ronald E. McNair program and has earned her bachelor's in psychology in 2012, her master's of science in special education in 2017, and her PhD in prevention science in 2021, all from the University of Oregon. Dr. Dragoo runs her own consulting business and currently serves the University of Oregon as the director for the Trio McNair Scholars Program. In her spare time, my guest enjoys weekly dinners with her daughter and son, who are both in college, walking in the forest, which sounds like fun, by the way, visiting the ocean, and learning new AI tools. It is a complete honor, an awesome time to be had with this guest. I want to welcome Dr. Christabelle Dragoo.
Thank you so much, Juan. It is an honor, and the privilege is all mine to be here with you today. As a Trio McNair alum, I'm really, really excited about this opportunity and grateful for you inviting me to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the podcast. I know that we've been scheduling and rescheduling and trying to get it together, and we finally agreed on this time. So I am so glad that you're on here.
Ditto.
So absolutely. How is your 2025 going so far?
Yeah, 2025 is just flying. We are on the quarter system here at the University of Oregon. And so we are still in our second quarter, spring quarter, and it is just flying by. It's midterms right now, and We're gearing up for our summer research internships. And yeah, things are just flying by. I feel like it was just New Year's, and now we're almost at commencement. No, it really does.
Already,
it's really been a lot. Yeah, it's just, I think, so many fun things, so many exciting things, so many big things in the world that are just keeping my brain occupied. And yeah, it's exciting. I feel like there's a lot of momentum and also just flying by and kind of wanting it to slow down. I'm looking forward to some summer slowness.
Yes, I agree. Summer has to, I think for me, is the best of the seasons. I'm not sure where you land on seasons, but for me, summer is just like, once we get there, I'm good. And like, there's a moment to relax a little bit. What about for you?
Early fall is my favorite. I specify by saying early because I also love summer and I love the sun. And here in Oregon, we don't get much sun. And so it's wonderful to be able to have the sun as well as all the leaves that start changing. Everything's really colorful in fall here. So that's my favorite season and time of year.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of Oregon, how are things in Oregon right now?
You know, the weather is just changing slightly. It actually feels like it's just now starting to be spring. We've had a couple of days of over 70 degrees, but that is like, it's taken a while. It feels like it's rained a lot more than normal, but that's also good for good for the environment here. Mm-hmm. But things in Oregon are great, lively. Things are blooming around campus. It's beautiful. It's a great time to be on campus. And then there's a slight caveat to that, which is a lot of us who have allergies really suffer this time of year in Eugene. There's a lot of pollen and people, yes, it's a big thing everyone talks about. Everyone's kind of sniffling and sneezing, but we don't have a lot of sickness going around. It's just allergies.
Just allergies. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, for a lot of the universities and colleges right now is finals week. They're wrapping up. You said earlier, we were talking before the podcast that Oregon functions in a quarter system. So you're almost done this semester, or you're halfway into the semester, or to the quarterly semester.
Yeah.
What is your go-to self-care practice at every semester? What is something that you do to make sure you keep your sanity?
Oh, yeah. It's actually something that I do almost every day if I can, and that's to have like a slow morning.
A slow
It's
morning.
really important. Yes, I will explain. It's something that is for me is even if it's just 20 minutes, but I like to have at least an hour before my meetings and all of the kind of events of the day start to just really kind of have a transition time where everything is kind of slowing down. I have a chance to kind of organize my thoughts, organize my day. And that really helps me with my nervous system regulation. And it really helps to kind of, for me, it's like my first line of defense when it comes to stress management and self-care is just having kind of a nice slow morning before kind of all the things, start happening. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Slow morning.
I think that's great self-care practice to have a nice slow morning and transition into a busy afternoon. During your
Yes.
intro, I shared with the audience that you
Yeah.
enjoy walking through the forest, so spending time with your kiddos, but also that you like learning about new AI tools. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into that? How did you develop interest into that?
Yeah. So, I have to tell you, I've always been someone who's really curious and interested with technology and new technologies. From I think an early age, even although when I was young, we didn't have computers in the homes like we do now.
Mhm.
But I've always been fascinated with like the kind of technology and internet revolution that happened. And likewise, I sort of have been paying a lot of attention to through grad school how people use technology in their lives and what that looks like, and
Mhm.
what are the sort of both the positive and also like ethical implications or negative things that can also come out of that. And so that's kind of this like big, larger question that I've had and that I've investigated. But for me now, as the director for the TRIO McNair Scholars Program, what we're seeing is a major shift in the world around what does it mean to prepare our students
Yeah.
for careers.
Mhm.
And so there, part of my own curiosity is both sort of personal and the other part is sort of professional, which is like I also feel like I have a major responsibility to make sure that our McNair scholars are leaving the University of Oregon fully prepared to engage in graduate school and beyond. And I'm somebody who believes that AI is not just going away. I got really interested, I will tell you, in the winter break of 2022, I think it was, right before 2023, when
Mhm.
ChatGPT actually hit the market.
Yeah, I remember when
I
it
got
first hit.
yeah, I don't know about you, but that winter break, I was completely obsessed and I did nothing else but like try to learn how to use it.
Wow.
Um, I actually made a funny TikTok account. Side note, I made another TikTok account
Uh-huh.
called Educate with AI. And I didn't end up doing too much with it because I got really nervous about um, AI use is still controversial, like
It
in
really,
academic
yeah,
settings.
really is.
And so, yeah, so like you could still go onto that account and it's there.
Mhm.
But I started posting on it and then I stopped because I was like, I'm gonna wait. Like I'm gonna wait and see what people think. But I was already in winter term. So January of 2023, right after the launch of ChatGPT, I was fully implementing instruction into my curriculum with the students to try to get them to have, conversations, to use it as a brainstorming tool for their research projects. And so I'm an early adopter, if you will, of that. But likewise, as you already probably know, the tools have just skyrocketed in terms of like all the different things. And the technology is just, it's increasing at a pace that's impossible to keep up with. So anyway, I'm fascinated by AI, not necessarily from just a use case perspective, but from like how is this also going to change things for us as educators? How is this going to change things for the students that are coming out of our programs? What does that mean for TRIO professionals in terms of the responsibilities that we have to teach about the uses, but also of the ethics? I'm really interested in that part too.
That's awesome.
That was a little long, but I love this topic.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. This next question, I think I intended it for us to reflect on early part of January when we were first planning this, but I still want to reflect with you is when you think about last year, what is something that you learned about yourself?
That I can, I thought about this for a while. I learned that I can hold both ambition and rest at the same time.
Oh, that's fascinating. Can you expand a little bit?
Yeah. So what I really learned is that sometimes it's the act of slowing down, not quitting, but slowing down and and sometimes for a lot of us who are high achievers, who are, in academia or who, pursue advanced degrees and sort of have this mindset of productivity and, it's easy to get into a burnout cycle too, really easy with, the high expectations of academia and all that. And what I think I learned most, and the hard way, but learned is that really slowing down is actually something that's strategic, and it's something that's really important, and it's something that a lot of us need, but sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to do it. And it really does go in conflict with the expectations sometimes of the world. And, speaking of technology, just from the previous question, technology can also make us feel, and how accessible information is, can also make us feel like things are just speeding up constantly. We just have to keep up with it. And so for me, my lesson that I really learned was really just about how I can both be ambitious and productive, but have big goals and have things I want to do, and also allow myself to rest. And those two things can remain true at the same time. Absolutely. I think that I used to think of them like it was one or the other.
Yeah. Wow. That's a very interesting take, because typically folks would think of it as two separate things. And now you're saying kind of holding both in the same space.
Yep. And I think that that's just the way that like society has kind of shaped our kind of beliefs around productivity and rest. And then also I think for a lot of us, we've internalized a lot of messages around, like, no, you can rest when you're dead. Those kind of things, or we internalize like the rest when, and we feel guilty about it, or we feel like, well, we could be doing something else right now, like we're wasting our time. And so it's like two things can be true at the same time. I think that's, both two different things can be true at the same time, I think is also just a lesson in and of itself that I think can be used for so many other things too. Absolutely.
I know we're 5 months into this year. What is something that you're looking forward to in 2025?
Yeah. I'm really excited about my daughter, my oldest child. So I have two children, and my oldest is graduating from college this year.
Oh, wow.
So
congratulations.
For me, yes. So, she, as having a mom who had a bachelor's degree before she was 18, she's not first gen. And I know that there's like some really great research too around, parental and maternal education and outcomes that children have. And I always got really interested in that. I thought, that's going to keep me going through all of this school, all of this, academic training that I'm obviously intellectually interested in, but also there's like other outcomes too that research shows us. And I really feel like that's something that is happening in our family in a really positive way. So I'm really excited that my daughter is graduating from the University of Oregon with her sociology degree this year.
That's awesome.
And that's coming up really soon here in mid-June. So that's something I'm really excited about.
Well, congratulations to you and your family. That's a awesome and proud moment. So at this point of the podcast, I typically like to reflect with the guests about their family and their upbringing. Can we rewind the clocks a little bit and talk about your family, your upbringing, and what that dynamic was like for you?
Yeah. How much time do you have? No,
we have.
Okay, so I'll give you.
Did you listen to the University of Montana episode?
Not yet.
Dragoo? It was 2.5 hours long.
But I totally will. It'll probably make me feel better. Okay, for sure. Well, so Juan, I have a really I don't think it's all that unique story or path, but I'm actually really excited to share. It's I'm the oldest of four. Let me start there. I'm the oldest of four children, and was raised in a blended household family. So my parents had two children, me and another sister, and then got divorced. And then our mom moved us up to Oregon from Los Angeles. And dad stayed in Los Angeles, remarried, had two more children. And we were, and so that's essentially my family. My family also is, I am half white, half Mexican. And so that's another interesting dynamic, I think, that I've always observed from more of a cultural lens and a lens of kind of looking at family dynamics and how parents raise children and looking at the similarities and differences there are really fascinating to me. No surprise why I ended up being a psychology major. So I have, I guess my kind of family and upbringing is that I think I grew up pretty fast, but also being the oldest is interesting because you kind of have to there's a limit on what you can do developmentally when you have younger siblings, especially ones that are much younger. And so I've seen a lot of Disney movies a lot of times.
Yes.
Like there's like, I've done a lot of there's like a lot of things I realize now in my 40s that I sort of like missed in my teenage years because I was busy like watching other things that were like PG instead of R. And so, so there's like, anyway, so yeah, just I think my upbringing also really, and the kind of just the, path of my life, it really helped me to have a lot of flexibility and be really independent. Those are sort of the ways in which I think my upbringing really helped me to be who I am today.
Absolutely. I think being the older sibling too, as you were saying, there's a different level of responsibility being placed on older siblings unconsciously. And I say that because I too am an older sibling.
Okay.
I have a family of 5 other siblings that, you kind of miss out on some of the teen stuff that you expect to go through, but you have younger siblings that you're like, they're into that. So I'm kind of like following along too.
Yeah. And it was fun. Don't get me wrong. We have plenty of great home videos, home movies, like back when there was like VHS, and had a great time. I didn't know what I was missing until I was much older, it was great. So yeah, it was, now, and it just gives me an excuse to watch like movies from like the 80s and 90s that I didn't even realize that were so great that like now I can appreciate it many years later.
Absolutely. How would your family describe you?
Yeah, I think it's so funny. This question makes me want to ask my parents like after the podcast? Like, how would you guys
What'd you think
describe
of me?
me? Yeah, I'm just really curious because I've never asked. I think that they would definitely I think they would definitely say I'm somebody who is curious. I'm a doer. I'm a go-getter. I'm an overthinker. I love books. So somebody who found myself, especially growing up, I found myself, and through grad school, obviously, found myself, wanting to always I have a real deep thirst for knowledge and learning. I love learning. And I really always want to know, like, why, like, why is this way?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'd probably tell you that. Yeah.
That you're very learning inclined.
Yes, very learning
Absolutely.
inclined.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, development of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotrosedu.org.
And now, back to the podcast.
So then my next question is, were you always drawn to learning, and what was that catalyst for you? Like, why were you so drawn to learning?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that I think that for me, learning was from my grandparents. Learning was always something that was education was always something that was so important. It was like a family value that was really shared and from a young age, I think was just like, Mija, make sure you go and do really well in school. And I think especially from, the Hispanic side of my family, I really felt like my grandparents, specifically my grandpa, he very much so was like, I think he really believed and saw from his eyes in his life that if you go to school, that can just open up so many more doors for you. Mm-hmm. And then my mom was just my mom and my dad both, and my stepmom, everyone's just been very supportive. But I don't think I was always great at learning. I had a lot of, I had some difficulty. And what I have always been is curious and observant, but school isn't always easy for those of us like who are also neurodivergent. So I have a ADHD, not afraid to say that. We can talk more about that later too, in terms of how I want to help others with that in my consulting work. But what at one point was the thing that was the most challenging for me, or the thing that impeded my learning, or the thing that was like a barrier to my learning at a young age, has now become something I'm just like I'm more accepting of, very much so accepting of, but also I also have observed in others the impact that all sorts of different learning disabilities too, and neurodivergence can have in the learning environment.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's kind of my draw to learning also came from like something that was really challenging for me, and then that and really trying to understand human behavior, and that ultimately led me to why I wanted to study psychology and then special education. And yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing and having this space to really share with the audience about the things that how this learning aspect of you came about. Did you have a particular favorite subject or a topic that you really latched onto?
You know what? And are you asking for a specific time period? I should say.
Well, not really. I mean, it could be at any point in your life where you felt like a topic became kind of the thing that you either obsessed over or you really latched onto.
Yeah. I don't feel like I really found that until undergrad. Honestly, I really don't. I think and when I did, it was psychology. Like hands down. Hands down, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my jam. This is what I want to do and study, and just I couldn't get enough. But it wasn't until much later, like I think in life for me, that I really figured out what it was. I can tell you what I didn't like. I can tell you what I really.
let's go with the
like. I know you asked me what I did like, but I can tell you what I didn't like. I really struggled in English.
Really?
And every year I always struggled. I think it was just I think I was one of those students in, the K-12 years that was like your typical, like, have a hard time paying attention unless it's something I really am interested in. And there's a lot of content in the curriculum back in the 80s and early 90s that just wasn't there. The pedagogy was so different then.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I think that was part of it. And I think it was like, I didn't understand my brain. My parents and my teachers didn't understand my brain. They just thought I wasn't paying attention, but they didn't also realize that I can pay great attention and I can have super deep focus as long as it's something I'm really interested in. And that's the ADHD brain, like at work. But they didn't, I think there was like the science too that was lacking, and the public awareness that was lacking.
Oh, for sure.
Around that. So anyway, I think that, so I don't know, but for whatever reason, the content and the curriculum in English, I just never really, always had a hard time with that.
Okay. Can you talk about that experience, elementary through middle school? What was that experience like for you? Was it pretty challenging? Or did you feel like you had a lot of adversity and obstacles to overcome?
Yeah. So I did move schools a couple of times, but that was, I think that didn't impact me. It impacted me for a short amount of time, but I think, it wasn't too much of a long-term impact. I think for me though, what really stands out is, and I have vivid memories of this, is like not being able to sit still in class and being pulled out of class to go to like the library area with this other small group of kids. Turns out, much like years later, I realized what it really is. And it's what they don't really have these programs much anymore, but one of the kind of branches of special education was talented and gifted, or they called it TAG for short. And so I remember these, like, I do remember like getting pulled out of class and having like other, doing other things, working on other projects and things like that with like a small group of kids. And I never really understood it. So I felt like oftentimes my K through 8 time was kind of like disorganized and messy, is what it feels like in my mind. And I couldn't, the barrier and the challenge was like, why can't I just like figure out how to get through this text? Or why can't I just, stay focused on this one thing? Like I have the hardest time just staying locked in. And so that for me was like something that I think really impeded my ability to like feel. So I'm going to be really thoughtful with my words. Feel successful in the classroom. It's not to say that I don't think I was successful in the classroom. It's just when you feel as a kid, when you feel disorganized and you feel, like maybe also removed from the classroom or whatever, there's like something different about you. You like notice and you sort of internalize like a narrative about it. And so it's not that I wasn't, and at the end of like even high school, my GPA was fine. I had like a 3.4, like it was all good, but there was something still that was like different. And I felt like the learning environment, I didn't really, maybe like fit into what the expectations were or whatever.
Right.
So that was like a mental barrier, I think, that didn't really leave me until like the end of grad school even.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm wondering, like, and during that time, like, what adjustments did you make, or how did you cope with it to be able to, get through it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think a lot of, well, when I was younger, it was having a great school psychologist in our school, and that I think allowed my teachers to have the more tools maybe, and to have a better understanding for supporting kids that are neurodivergent. And I think that was a big part of my younger years.
Mhm.
As I got older, it didn't really. I was able to kind of cope and have other, like skills that I had built over the years that made
Yeah.
it so it was manageable and it wasn't an issue anymore.
Mhm.
Like middle school, high school was all right. Like I said, even my GPA coming out of high school was, solid. And I didn't really, other than being bored, I think the one thing that I did end up doing was like, when you aren't really interested in something, sometimes you have to like read it over and over and over to like, because your brain's just
Yeah.
like, it's not sticking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like so like one of my coping strategies was just repetition.
Repetition.
Like,
Wow.
because I'd find myself reading and then I'd just be lost in a text, like, and then read the same paragraph over, but like it wasn't sticking. Like there was nothing.
Like
It's like I'm reading words, but it's not comprehending.
it
And
stopped. Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. And so I just sort of, sometimes it's like, okay, you need to take a break and then come back to it. That's part
Yeah.
of it. But, I think a lot of it was just discipline, just being like, just not giving up, just like being relentless
Absolutely.
about it, just like, all right, I'm going to get it. I'm
Yeah.
going to get it. I just need to practice, keep it, the reps. That
Yeah.
was, the one of the best strategies for me, which then ended up being really helpful in undergrad many years later.
That's awesome. Can you tell me about any interests outside of academics that developed for you during this time? Did you have interest in music, dance, theater, art, or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was younger, I was in gymnastics and dance, and that sort of shifted into cheerleading as I got into middle school, high school. And then I also, because I just can't do one thing, I love lots of different things. I also played tennis and
Oh,
I played
wow.
golf
That's
in high
awesome.
school. And yeah. And all outside of those kind of competitive sports and whatnot, I really enjoyed being a part of our business club called DECA.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I also did the morning announcements for our high
Ooh,
school.
all right.
I helped to contribute to that. Yeah, so just like there was other leadership things that I got involved with that I really enjoyed, and yeah.
That's awesome. How did you and your family prepare for your transition into high school? Because you've gone through
Hmm.
elementary, middle school, and now you're transitioning into high school. How did you prepare? Was there any sort of preparation into it?
No.
Okay, no, yeah, that's fair. That's
No,
fair.
not that I can remember. Not at all.
Absolutely fair. Did any of
Just
the
another
extra
year.
you were like, so middle school
Yeah.
to high school next year.
Yeah. Yeah. There was, I mean, I remember being so excited.
Yeah.
that was a big deal, like just developmentally. I remember being so excited to go to the high school.
Wow, yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't remember there being any kind of conversation about, there might have been, but I don't remember. I don't think there was any, nothing about preparation,
Yeah,
at all.
fair enough. Did any of the extracurricular activities that you had follow you into high school?
Mm. Yes. So sports and I'm thinking of anything else that I started in middle school no, most everything kind of developed and evolved in high school.
Okay, right on. Can you talk about your high school experience? What are some highlights?
Mm. Mm. So high school, high school. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think that for me, that's when I started to realize that the importance of teaching and mentorship. I had some and coaching. I think that's the other thing too. Having dabbled in a couple of different sports and activities and leadership opportunities, I think that's when I started to really observe and notice the impact that great teachers can really, or great coaches and
100%, yeah.
Adults can really have on kids.
Wow. When did the
Yeah.
discussions or even thoughts about college begin for you?
So those really were mostly with my college counselors.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I'm technically a first gen student. And so we didn't, other than there was like general encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
the logistics and the how to and the here you should try to apply to or check out this school or what, that stuff was really done in my school setting at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do recall that kicking up about junior year. That for me was like when I started to first hear about college. And then oh sorry, and I'll let you get to the
No,
next
yeah, no.
question. I realize I'm
I was going to ask you about the list of colleges that you had in mind because, yeah, I'll let you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. So Cal Poly Pomona, which is down in the Los Angeles area near my family that lives down there, and Pepperdine University, which is the one I still to this day wish I went to, and then University of Oregon and Oregon State University.
Oh, wow.
And of all the schools, I got into Cal Poly, and then I didn't end up going. And I decided kind of in consultation with my family that, and again, trying to navigate this as the oldest child and as a first gen student, this was really difficult. My family, even with their best intentions, tried to do they did their absolute best to support me and with the knowledge they had. But the reality is that they, didn't necessarily have all the same knowledge like I have, for example, now to be able to share with my kiddos. And so, it was like kind of just it felt like a really, what am I trying to say? Felt like like it was just too difficult for like logistically for my family to try to make work. And for, everyone was like, where are you going to live? How are you going to get there? You don't have a car. Like there was like there was never like it was really interesting. There was never like it just wasn't like, now that I know so much more about college and I've worked at a college for, 15 years, I realized there was just so much information my family didn't have to be able to support me in the way to get me off to do that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. I ended up deciding, just so you know, spoiler alert, I ended up deciding to, again, not go to Cal Poly. And instead, I wanted to pursue the career path that one of my grandmothers had, which is being a hairstylist. And so I actually went into beauty school right after high school, and became a fully licensed cosmetologist, which just means that it's a fancy word for I did hair, nails, and aesthetics. And so yeah, that's the sort of like immediate post high school thing.
So can I ask about that? Because it sounded like topics that interest you were fascinating, yes, but was there in your mind that going to beauty school was much more a faster reward career than it would be a 4-year college?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was, yes, well said. I think it was like both that. Exactly. There was this like immediate, there's this sort of this like immediate financial stability that I was like, okay, I could do that, like, and start making money soon. And, that makes a lot of sense to people, and a lot of, a lot of sense to folks, especially if you haven't gone to college. It's sort of like it's a trade school route. It's really, and it can be really, rewarding, and you can have a lifelong career doing that and really enjoy it. And to be honest, at that time, Juan, I thought I was going to be. I actually really did. I really loved that career path. But yeah, it was also like a logistical thing, right? It was like a financial and logistical thing. It was like, this thing, you're not, you're going to be doing this thing for this many years, and you're not, not going to make money right away, versus this other thing that is much shorter amount of time, much less money, and I can start making money and, being self-sufficient soon. So those are kind of like the big considerations that I had in my life at that moment in time.
Now, can you share then that experience of being not only in beauty school, but also starting your career, and how long did you do that for?
I did it for about 10 years, licensed and practicing. And then, of course, like, I still have family that's like, hey, will you cut my hair? Like, I still cut my kids' hair.
Because you still have the skill.
But really practicing and doing it was about it. Yeah. I still have the skill. I still have my shears. So yeah, absolutely. But I really, I think that for a good amount of time, it was something that just made perfect sense to me. And I really loved it. I really loved it.
Yeah. What was your watershed moment that started?
Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Yes, absolutely. To perfection. What was your watershed moment that started nudging you back to the college career, or going into college?
I'm so happy you asked. This is something that took me so long to kind of articulate, and to kind of figure out. So as a hairstylist and makeup artist, you are what they call behind the chair. So behind the chair, you are somebody who also becomes like a pseudo-therapist. People that go get, when you go get your hair done, I don't know, you might go to a barber, but, when you go get your hair done, there's, it's a safe space. People just share all sorts of amazing, life updates and things, and deep thoughts and things that, are really important to them, and, or that they want advice on, it's a really neat and special, privileged relationship that you have as a hairstylist. And I think it was through that experience that I realized, okay, there was a point in my career as a hairstylist that I went, well, what's fulfilling me now is actually like I want to help people not just on the surface level, but like
Mm.
deeper in like within the human. Like
Mm.
there was this moment of like, like I love being able to make my clients feel good when they left the salon. That was like, there's like nothing better than somebody just feeling like, yes, this is exactly the hairdo I like. This is exactly the hair color, the haircut, the whatever I want. They feel amazing. Or there was, or if I did like, a bridal updo or something, a
Uh-huh.
bride on her wedding day doing her hair and makeup, and just she feels incredible. There's something that feels so great about that. But then I realized for me, I think I had a call to be a helper to the helping professions. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think that hairstylists can like definitely be in this helping professions. Like
Oh, absolutely.
like universe. I think it's definitely a lot of amazing hairstylists that are just like so good at that part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for me, I was not as I'm trying to put this into words. Like I wasn't as intellectually stimulated as I wanted to be. But
I see.
I
Okay.
didn't have words to describe that feeling at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of knew like I wanted more. I really wanted to help people, but I didn't. And I saw a lot of patterns. Like I
Mm-hmm.
observed a lot of patterns from talking to hundreds of people over the years, and having hundreds of different clients. It's like, when you just start to like make observations about humans and you just start to see patterns, um, I realized like, man, people are really struggling with mental health. Like that's when mental health became like such a high priority for me to really like want to do something about for
Mm-hmm.
other people, not just for
Absolutely.
myself, but like for other people, like for society, like make an
Absolutely.
impact. I felt like my impact was okay as a hairstylist in terms of like, like helping, but I didn't feel like I was making the impact that I wanted to make
Yeah.
or that I could, or I was capable, or my potential wasn't fulfilled yet.
So then it feels like that nudge started then. Where did the
Yeah.
conversation or who did you reach out to try to carve a different path?
My mom.
Oh,
My
okay.
mom is has always been my sort of like go-to, for better or worse, my go-to cheerleader. She's amazing. I can go to her and with whatever like weird moment of stuck or pivot or whatever that's happening in my life, and she's awesome at helping me to kind of reframe it or think about it in
Hmm.
a way. After high school, my mom actually went back to college herself as well. So
Really?
now she herself now in her later years, she's a licensed clinical social worker.
That
And
is
so she
awesome.
also helps me, like, so she has a lot of really great skills
Yeah.
in this stuff, which is really helpful. But she is the person who I confide in when it comes to any of these sort of like life things. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So now that that nudge has started, you've talked to mom. What were your steps to get? Because you obviously went to the
Mm.
University of Oregon. You didn't go to your preferred school, but University of Oregon was still there. Why did that connection, why was that persistent?
So actually, what came right before the University of Oregon was Portland Community College.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I That was actually my transitionary point. Yeah. So what when I made the internal decision, like I'm gonna try to get my bachelor's degree. Like I really, really want to do this.
Yeah.
And for me, also having two young children,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
my daughter had just started kindergarten,
Hmm.
and my
Hmm.
son was 2 or 3 at the time. I was like, you know what? I just don't want to. I don't want to keep doing hair. I want to pursue something else. There was just this major shift in my life that felt like I was moving on, and then it was like the momentum was like I was moving on,
Yep.
but I didn't quite have the exact next steps in order yet, but I knew I felt that shift coming.
Yeah.
And so I enrolled. The easiest thing for me to do was to enroll in my local community college, which was Portland Community College in Portland, Oregon. And I started taking classes, and I started taking online classes so that I could also stay home with my son when he was little. And that was amazing, and just did hair on the side. And it was great.
Okay. Yeah.
I did that for the first year, and that's when I got linked in with an advisor who connected me as a first-gen student, who connected me with resources on campus, and also talked to me about what does it take to transfer to a 4-year college or university. And that's really how I ended up going to U of O, was really this kind of a longer process where it started at the community college, took classes there for a couple of years, and then said, all right, you know what, I'm going to try again. And
wow,
I did. And I got in.
That's awesome. That's
I got
amazing.
in this time.
Yeah. So the support that you got at the community college level set you up to transition to a 4-year institution. What type of support, what type of services were you able to get to make that transition? Because I imagine, and I'm making a huge leap in an assumption, you were a non-traditional student starting a 4-year degree.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. And the number one thing, there wasn't like a specific program that I did. I also, as a parent of 2 going back to school, I was really careful not to take on too much. So as it was, I could barely keep up with 12 credits at that time, just make sure, because I also want to make sure I'm getting A's and B's and, so I took that many credits. So there wasn't any additional like programs or anything, but what I do recall as being the most important thing was the advising and meeting with an advisor and meeting with like couple times doing that. And that exposed me to like the Myers-Briggs assessment, which is like, what are the different kinds of, like qualities that you have, and what are the careers that you would be good at, those kind of things.
Right. Yeah.
And that really got me thinking, and that really helped to open up my mind to this world of possibility. And that really got me excited. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many different things I could do.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so that was the thing that had the most impact was just like really great advising. Really, really great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were preparing now from going to a community college into a 4-year institution. Did you already do research beforehand before you transitioned to the University of Oregon?
I did. I knew I wanted to stay in Oregon for my bachelor's degree, just so that we could kind of stay near my mom and family. And so there was definitely some thought put into that. And I remember just also like making the decision, I'm going to apply to U of O and see what happens. And I'm not going to apply anywhere else. And that's now I also say that because this is terrible advice. Like I wouldn't give that advice to anybody else because that's super chancy and you never know. But I at the time I thought, what do I have to lose?
For sure.
So I went, I'm going to put my name in that hat and then let's see how it goes. And it turned out it worked, but it is riskier in terms of how I would definitely advise other people to do it. Yeah.
Can you tell us then? So when you made the transition to the University of Oregon as a non-traditional student, talk to us about your first semester there. Did you feel different? Did it feel like what was your feeling like? What did you experience?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Let me just tell you, let me just paint a picture.
Sure thing.
As a non-traditional student, here's the thing. I am entering a humongous, like state, 4-year college, state institution on this huge, beautiful campus. as somebody who is in their late 20s with 2 children in tow. It is very different. It was both so exhilarating and exciting and like, yes, I'm living my dream. And then on the other hand, it was like also like, I don't belong here. Like it was very, it wasn't that anyone was rude. It wasn't that there was like, but it was just looking around, when your brain does social comparison and you're looking around and you like just notice you stand out because you're different than everybody else. Like it was that natural, quick start comparison of I'm 10 years older than everybody and I have kids. And it's just you just move different. You move different. And also you realize very quickly that institutions are not set up for transfer students or first gen students very well.
Yeah.
But or first gen transfer students, they're just not. And thankfully now the University of Oregon has some really great stuff. But back then in 2010, when I started, it was very different. But I will tell you, the one thing that University of Oregon has always done incredibly well, and actually this is like one of the biggest factors for me choosing to go here, was because of the housing. We have a really incredible university housing system, which has housing options, multiple housing options for families. Yeah. And that was like one of the best things. That was like the selling point for me. Like I already knew I wanted to go to U of O for other reasons, but like I really needed the logistics to work out. And this having family housing that's affordable and that also is like specifically meant for student families, it literally, it was all the difference in the world. It really, really was. So yeah.
That's awesome. Can you tell me, what did your first year in college teach you?
Do you mean first year at U of O or first year?
Your first year in U of O, yes.
First year at U of O taught me to be brave. As I mentioned, navigating these the classrooms and even the student union, and just like any office you're in on campus, and you're trying to get help, financial aid, whatever. It's just this like I'm different than everybody else feeling, and so I had to really find my bravery and my courage of just do it anyway, and I think that was part of it. And that kind of like getting over the feeling of not fitting in is I think what I'm trying to get at. I felt like I really had to harness or channel my bravery or my courage in new ways, in new experiences that were challenging. But also the bravery piece, the reason I said that is because that's also when I learned about the McNair Scholars Program. And it was a TRIO SSS advisor that I was initially meeting with that said, oh, you know what? You need to go check out this other program called the TRIO McNair Scholars Program. And, I met with the director and I started to, talk about what it was like, what the program's like. And I knew I wanted to continue going to school as long as I could. I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but I had no idea how to do it. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to study yet. I kind of knew, but not really. And then that's when I realized imposter syndrome started to kick up big time. And I was after I remember after leaving that meeting, I was like, no, I'm not smart enough for this. I'm not young enough for this. I'm not, whatever, resourced enough for this. And so I remember sitting with the application, I don't know if I can do this, and that's when I realized, just do it anyway and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like that's the bravery thing I was really, kind of starting to feel like, you know what, I can do this.
Oh, that's so,
And
yeah.
anyway,
So, yeah, that
so that
transition.
that was my big lesson for year one.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I feel like going your first year or your transition first year into U of O was that there was this initial like, oh my gosh, this campus is not built for me. Then getting adapted, really trying to feel like you're part of the campus community, and then to tack on like, hey, an advisor said to you, you'd be really good at this program. And then going, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can add that to my plate, or this feels like
Hmm.
something extra. So, having said that,
Yes.
can you share with us highlights of your undergraduate years? What did you enjoy the most?
Oh, yeah.
And what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Well, so undergrad, highlights for sure for me are meeting my first mentor, really understanding what a mentor was.
Hmm.
I really got lucky. Juan,
Yeah.
I have a phenomenal mentor. Her name is Dr. Laura Lee McIntyre. I mean, still to this day and forever will be, my mentor. She is incredible. And I really do feel like I just like lucked out. Um, and when I, you know, was able to connect with her as my McNair mentor and work on my first research project under her supervision and mentorship. Um, I think she really also helped me to understand the sort of the science and the art of mentorship, and really what it means to be, student centered. Um, and I felt like I was a really challenging case. I feel like I was to your other part of the, second part of the question, the other uh, primary challenge I always have is like just time management and multiple obligations. So I
Hmm.
was always working, taking a full load of classes and raising two kids always.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when you have those big responsibilities, it's really hard to like also do research on top of that. Like and like also do all
Yes.
these other things,
Yes.
right? And so I think that was like right and like so that was like a big part of it was just this like the kids get sick and then I get sick and then like it's just this like and she was just so understanding. And so I say that, like really working with her was the highlight of my undergrad years. And specifically for the last, 2 years I was at U of O. Because she showed me so much grace, so much understanding, and really made me also in moments where I doubted myself, she saw something in me I didn't see yet.
Hmm.
And so that really was for me like huge, just absolutely huge. Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly highlight. So you joined the Trio Ronald E. McNair program. I'm guessing that it almost seems like you had the foresight to say, I'm probably going beyond my bachelor's degree here. Is that a fair assessment?
It is. I at that point when I like the day I applied, I remember making the internal decision to myself, I'm doing this. Like I don't
Okay.
even care. I'm going to try and I'm going to keep trying until like like I can't. I,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
kind of made that like it was like a wavering thing before, and then when I like just filling out the application, it was like this internal commitment I made to myself at that moment in time that I'm going to do this. And you know what?
Mhm.
This would be awesome if I got in. It would make it so wonderful. But even without it, I still want to do it.
Wow, that's amazing. So I gotta ask,
Mm-hmm.
because the undergraduate program itself is already rigorous. You've got to go through a
Yeah.
lot of classes. Why did you decide to enter a master's program? Was it a career-driven decision or just out of the love for learning?
It was definitely out of the love for learning. I really had my eyes set on the PhD. always.
Wow, already?
And
Yeah.
that was, so the master's was just like along the way. It was like part of it was like built into the journey. But really my eyes were on the prize. But I have a really interesting graduate school story to tell you.
Go for it. Yes, please share.
So when I started, with as part of the McNair Scholars Program, all of us are required to apply to grad school our senior year. And, hopefully, and the hope is that everyone, gets in and starts at least a master's or even maybe a PhD program. I submitted a bunch of applications my senior year, got rejected for most of them, got interviewed and waitlisted for one, but then they didn't take anybody off of the wait list. So I quickly pivoted and applied for a master's program and got in. And then in the fall, first term of that master's, and that was a master's in psychology. And as soon as I started that, I very quickly realized the research I was doing and the focus of it was not what I really wanted. It was a bit more removed from like the helping call that I felt. As you might recall, when I was a hairstylist, this pivot, I started to feel like this helping profession, this call to the helping professions somehow, some way. And so it was that same kind of like thing where I went, this is great. It's really, the research was just amazing. But I really wanted to feel like I was doing something a little different. And so I then applied to the PhD program in school psychology and got in. So I went from, so I didn't finish the master's in psychology, but I did end up working on a master's in special education when I was working, when I was in graduate school, working on school psychology, graduate work. And so, that was why it was sort of like along the way built into the program. And it was something that, and it was fantastic because it also blended my, my passion for helping people and children who are neurodivergent. Now I actually have that focus in my consulting, but with adults, which is awesome. And it's definitely a hot topic in higher education, working with college students, and I love that I appreciate and am grateful for, us as society talking about it more. But I ended up going into school psychology, and that's how I actually did my master's degree. So it wasn't necessarily targeted intentionally just to like do that and get out and go work. It was really research focused.
Wow. So, and I think this kind of answers my next question, but I'm going to reframe it a little bit because you chose this field out of fascination. Was it a particular like experience or observations that you made that made you hone in onto this research?
Yeah. So, well, and okay. So do you mean for
your school psychology? For your master's.
Oh, for school psychology.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's actually where I really started to lean into like technology and really want to study it formally and research it as a professional. And so actually for my master's project, I worked with Dr. Christabelle, who I had met through the Center in Teaching and Learning. And he was also really interested in technology. And one of the things I got really interested in was like, how are teachers using technology in the classroom right now? Right. And then specifically like teachers in special education settings. So teaching, kiddos who are neurodivergent or have other, learning needs. And so that was really the kind of the project to round out the master's degree. But then that work really continued on and evolved in graduate school. And then very shortly after the master's, a brand new program called Prevention Science was started at the University of Oregon. At that time, I was also realizing I really love I really love research. I knew that I've always known that really since the McNair Scholars Program. Thank you to my time as a scholar. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, I love this thing called research that we do. It's incredible. And it's so intellectually like satisfying. And it allows my curious brain just to like be really happy and explore things that I think are interesting or that are important and, you know, all that. So I realized, you know, in like my fourth year was this program called Prevention Science came around. My mentor, Dr. Laura Lee McIntyre, who was also my McNair mentor, she was like an affiliated faculty with the program. And I started to, you know, meet other faculty also that were doing work. And I realized my interests for the long term were really less focused on the school setting and more around like individual sort of mental health as well as like community-based things. Mm-hmm. So what I realized is like the kind of the big shift for me was I started to become more focused, less focused on the school settings and implementing interventions there. Mm-hmm. And more focused on like, what does that look like in terms of like public health? What does that look like in terms of, you know, like community-based interventions and also policy? I also got really interested in kind of understanding how policy works and how funding works. And so there's like all these other aspects to, you know, intervention science and behavioral science that I actually became really interested and fascinated with. Uh-huh. And I wanted to, while I had the chance to still be in school, I wanted to explore those as a grad student. So that's what led me to then transition and apply. And mind you, I had already applied to grad school many times, so I was getting real good at this. I always tell the students in the program, I always tell the students, like, it's okay if it like doesn't work out the first time. I've applied to grad school so many times. That's just part of my story. But, you know, I thankfully I got the blessing from Dr. McIntyre, and I found a home over in prevention science so I could finish out my doctorate, which was amazing. Wow. It was a brand new program, and it really focused on, you know, public health, and it also incorporated aspects of school psychology too, which was great. So I didn't lose, you know, the like courses that I already took. I didn't lose the connections. I didn't lose the faculty relationships. It was all still within the College of Education, which was amazing. So it was just, I just sort of pivoted to this sort of like adjacent program that really allowed me to start diving into some things that I really was interested in. And that was kind of what led me to, and then eventually, you know, what I did my PhD in, which is prevention science.
Wow. So I've got to point out, because you went from bachelor's to master's to doctoral, you had literally very little to no break.
No break.
And I've heard the rumors, and I've been told, right? Because right now I got a master's. I'm working on a second master's just because I love broadcasting and communication so much. But the doctoral program is really not for the faint of heart. That's what I've been told. So you decided more school on top of more school, and at that more school. Was that much more difficult, or did you feel that there was a difficulty attached to that?
Oh yeah, there's definitely difficulty, for sure. And I always joke too and say, like, I almost have enough credits for 2 PhDs.
Oh
like,
my God.
Yeah. I have like a sick obsession with like learning. Like I love learning. And listen, I would still, if I could just still be a student, I would. Like I would probably work on an MBA. That would be like what I would do. I have to hold myself back from like, you know, letting myself dream about that, because I loved being a student. What I realized is that the struggles and all those other things that I had early on, I always figured out a way to like make make things okay in terms of like, internally and with my ADHD and all that. Like elementary, middle, those were rough. High school, okay, I like figured some stuff out. All right. Then undergrad, it was like a new kind of difficult. And then same with grad school. It's like a new kind of difficult. And you just find ways to adapt and cope. But grad school, really, that's when things got really tricky, I think, specifically with my ADHD. Oh my gosh, yes. But the PhD, what I loved about it is the programs are smaller. Like, this is one of the things I think that's actually really cool about PhDs, is that you're with a group of people for like several years, and you are often working on the same thing and maybe slightly different projects, but like you kind of start to speak the same language. And it's just amazing. There's just so many great friends, lifelong friends that I've met in grad school, that, I think the friendships that I gained along the way, the faculty support and mentorship, couldn't have been better. I think that that's just another part of it that makes it more doable. Yeah. So yes, the PhD is hard, of course, right? But there's really great parts of it that make it feasible. Mentorship, connecting with your peers, like that social support. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to connect with your cohort mates, in grad school, whether it's a master's or a PhD. But that really helped me get through it. And it was wonderful too, because they, when you have kids, not everyone in grad school has kids. Most people do not have kids. And they were always really understanding when I would like constantly have to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't go out to the, have a drink tonight or whatever.
Right.
Or like go out, go out and go to the pub or whatever. That was just not an option for me. I was helping my kids with their homework and getting them tucked into bed. And so, it's something that I think, with regard to the PhD, there's almost, when you have kids too, I think it almost can somehow like help too. If you're just like really busy outside of it, like there's also, I think it helps you to prioritize things. There's not a lot of room in my schedule for fluff.
Okay.
Everything is dialed in, like everything, like there's only this much time to do it. So I got it done. And, like, because there were so many things that made it like actually just okay. However, don't get me wrong. One of the things I think in terms of the challenges with the PhD specifically that is always probably going to be there is, it's a space of incredible expectations. And it's hard to not internalize those things, so if you feel like you're not meeting whatever those are, and sometimes they're invisible, like they're often invisible, like the expectations, but there's this sort of like, pressure that exists. And if you have really great support, it buffers it. So if you've got, if you're connected with your cohort and you've got friends there that you can trust and you can talk to, that can help buffer it. And that they can help, remind you that it's imposter syndrome, not really, reality. And also if you have really great mentors, this is why also we spend so much time in the program with like, and I emphasize so much with the students, like, take your time to do your research on the mentor, because that at the end of the day is the number one predictor of success in grad school, in a PhD program specifically. It's the goodness of fit with the mentor. And it's so important. Again, got lucky. Even after I shifted over from school psychology to prevention science, Dr. John Seeley was my new advisor and new mentor in prevention science, and he was absolutely incredible. And I worked in his suicide prevention lab for several years, and before I started my dissertation. So I think that's just like a real big piece to all of it is, yes, it's hard, but there's also some really great strategies to like making it doable.
Wow, wonderful. I love how you really not only talked about the challenging aspects of the doctoral program, but you really addressed some of your highlights and some of the things that you were really working on. Was there a particular career that you were aiming for? Because your eyes were on the prize for the doctoral program. I'm wondering, was there a
Yes.
particular career that you were targeting?
You know, originally, like when I submitted my applications, I thought I want to teach and do research at at an R1 institution, at a a university that has a lot of research going on, and has a great reputation for teaching and research.
Mhm.
That was like my long-term goal.
Absolutely.
And then as a graduate student, as you know, you get, especially in the PhD programs, you can get funding and a fellowship. So I actually got, in 2017, I got a fellowship for working in at the time it was called undergraduate studies.
Mhm.
And it was to help start the Office of Distinguished Scholarships and the Center for Undergraduate Research and Engagement. And so my responsibilities were really administrative, but then they were also advising. And so it was kind of a dual role. But I was a grad student still. And without even doing this on purpose, there was not like it was, at the time I was just trying to get a job just so I could pay for grad school. And I loved the job posting. I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I know I love research. I think it'd be fun to help undergraduate students do research. Plus as a McNair Scholar alum at the time, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. This was such an impactful experience for me. I would love to help others. So very quickly, even in my interview, I just fell in love with this idea of this job. And then, well, turns out I got the job. And that's also how I found my third and sort of the third mentor that still to this day is one of, the most important people to me. His name is Dr. Josh Snodgrass. He's a Department of Anthropology professor. And he was also in this administrative role at that time and working to, increase equitable ways for students to get involved with undergraduate research. And I was like, absolutely, I want to help that cause. And so I got to really get in the weeds with advising and also the behind the scenes of how programs work, like on the job training that ended up preparing me for this job, but it wasn't by design. It was just, and that's actually what then led me to the career shift. So it was really through that GE position. Here at U of O, we call them GEs, graduate employees. Other schools, they call them GAs, GTFs, TAs, all sorts of other acronyms. But my GE position, and doing that for several years until COVID hit. And then the job got cut with the first round of budget cuts from the university when COVID hit. I know. That job is really what gave me the skill set, but also introduced me and exposed me to this whole world of advising. Before that, I had just done I was a research assistant and a project manager on, like grants and other research studies. But this was like student services, student support. And I was like, wow, this is great. and so turns out that is actually what was like the thing for me that made the shift for the career.
Right on. Now, your story truly does come full circle because you currently serve as the director for the Trio McNair Scholars Program at the University of Oregon. This is truly outstanding because when we hear the Trio journeys that come full circle, these are folks that have been given support and now understand the college process, understand the pathway. And so again, you really come full circle. Can you talk about your position and its role within the university?
Absolutely. It really is full circle. And sometimes this is also why it's good to slow down sometimes and
For
kind
sure.
of reflect on one's life and journey. It is amazing to be able to, and it really genuinely is a privilege to be able to be in, service in this position, and helping, future generations of McNair scholars every single day. I love
Yeah.
it. The really the position at the university it's pretty awesome. There's, as the director and the principal investigator of the grant, I'm on the leadership team for our division, which is undergraduate education, student success, which is really wonderful. It allows me to have connections with other directors and assistant associate vice provost across campus. And it allows me to also leverage those connections to support our students in ways that I wouldn't have been able to do in other positions. It's wonderful, and that really is a privilege. And we also have a lot of really great support on our campus because we've had the program for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we've had the grant for 25 years. So
Wow.
it's really, I was lucky that I sort of inherited a program, that I was a product of, am a product of,
Mm-hmm.
and have many friends that are products of, and that I get to now use my knowledge and what I've learned along the way to contribute into also improving, and really creating a whole sort of a new vision for the program. And yeah, it's really been awesome.
That's fascinating. Can you talk about the degrees that you've earned and how they've helped you prepare for this role?
Oh my gosh, yes. So first is my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and it probably not surprising. I think that with regard to psychology, learning about how the human brain works and learning about how people work, undoubtedly is, the foundation to, in my opinion, the foundation to me having the empathy, the skills, the compassion, for, understanding how our students are navigating the spaces that they're in. And then moving on with my master's in special education, along with my school psychology training and grad school, really helped me to understand how to support students in school settings and academic settings, but also really helped me to understand the ecosystem that exists in schools, and that it is a system, and that what that system looks like, and where are the levers and the things we can pull on to make differences, where can we intervene. That's what really helped me to understand that I apply directly to now as the person kind of leading the program. Now in this role, I kind of use that knowledge of the system, the academic systems, to kind of navigate that space that I'm in now.
Mm.
And my PhD in prevention science, really, I think there's multiple things. One is data. Really, that my PhD really allowed me to focus in on and get really deep educational experiences and training on, data, evaluation, outcomes, testing interventions, looking at effectiveness of programs, things like that. And also my mentor, Dr. John Seeley, is a big fan of quality improvement cycles. So I learned a lot from him around what does it mean to have to take a quality improvement lens and, continuously iterate and improve, and things like plan, do, study, act, cycles of improvement. That's something that I apply constantly to work, and really to every year. I feel like I'm modifying and improving the program and the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really helped me kind of apply what I've learned from the field of prevention science is really large. It's a multidisciplinary science that includes like education, psychology, neuroscience, public health, statistics, big data. And so I really appreciate that I do get to pull in different parts of each of my degrees into really the work I do every single day.
That's wonderful. I imagine that your role also collaborates with various TRIO programs at your campus.
Mm-hmm.
In what ways do you support other TRIO programs at the University of Oregon, either directly or indirectly?
Yeah, so we have 2 TRIO programs here at the University of Oregon, the TRIO McNair Scholars Program, of course, and then we also have TRIO Student Support Services. And so I get the privilege of collaborating with our director and staff over there in TRIO SSS, and we do different things. One of the things that, right now, timely question here. We are coming together to, work on advocacy, work on sharing our student success stories around campus as well as the community. So that's something that's like happening like right now as we're talking, and something that's a very much so collaborative endeavor, advocating for our programs. And then, the other thing kind of more kind of based on like the programming part of things is we will do, one, TRIO SSS students end up often becoming fantastic TRIO McNair scholars. It's an amazing, fantastic pipeline that we have. And that's one of the like major ways that we work together.
That's awesome.
They just have so many fantastic students that, yes. But there's also some joint programming that we do. One of the things is we can't duplicate services. So what we do is instead we, have like some joint workshops and things like that we do throughout the year. For example, one of the ones that I participate in is a workshop on how to apply to grad school. So we open it up to TRIO SSS and McNair students. And of course, McNair scholars, they get a ton more like specific grad school stuff. But it is like a general workshop on, the basics of things. I go through like, oh, here's all the programs I've applied to. Like, here's why you should listen to me. I've done this a few times. Like, I failed a few times. It's okay.
Absolutely.
Like, it's all good. You just keep trying. But yeah, so those are some of the like, concrete ways that we connect and collaborate.
That's wonderful. You've worked in the TRIO McNair program, now knowing as a student and now as an administrative professional, what is your vision and goal for TRIO McNair Scholars Program a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now?
Yeah. Whew. Well, first, I hope we are funded.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Let's keep TRIO funded.
Yes, please keep us funded. It's such a magnificent program that has so much impact on so many lives, so many families. It really is incredible. My vision is one where all of our students, every single graduate, every senior, that gets to the place of applying to grad school, my hope and will remain my hope and goal and vision is that they at least they're in the position, they get into grad school, and ideally more than one, so that they get to be in the position of making an informed decision for themselves about where they want to go to grad school. It doesn't always work out that way. That's just, applying to grad school is like gambling. It's really tricky. And it's not as straightforward. It's not like going from high school to undergrad.
Yeah.
It's a very different game you play. And so, I think that for me, though, the goal is that every single student that we serve is going to be in a position to be able to come out, be competitive for grad school their senior year when they're applying, and that ideally they get in to more than one place so that they have a choice and that they can make then an informed decision with their family or their partners, whoever. And and that ultimately, that they are able to go into the world and be competitive in their career, whatever it is that they choose.
Right.
Originally the Trio McNair program was really designed to diversify the professoriate. So a lot of the, emphasis historically for the program is not just on getting your PhD, but then also then going into academia and being a professor. And the reality is that, I think the most recent statistic I looked at was probably from, data from a couple years ago. So I don't know, I have like the last year or two of data on this, but the reality is that less than 10% or around 10% of all PhD graduates get in to a job as a professor, meaning 90% or more are not going to ever even have the opportunity to be a professor because the jobs don't exist, right? So in a way, like there's this, what we would love to happen, but then there's the reality of and the data behind that. And so with that said, my vision is that I'm able to create a curriculum and a program that is deeply, enriching, and it is something that allows the students to gain all the resources that they need to get into grad school. But then also, if they want to pursue being a professor, wonderful, great, awesome. You've got all the, the things to do it. You've got, the expertise behind you to do that. But if you don't, I don't want the students who don't want to be a professor to be excluded from this larger vision. And so I think that it's my job to also make sure that we are preparing them. This is where AI comes in, to prepare them to be, competitive on the job market after their PhD.
Absolutely.
And I do believe, we will see as time goes on that we can't ignore some of those AI literacy skills.
Absolutely. I know we're now heading toward the end of the podcast, but I wanted to give you space to talk about your mentors, because it sounded like you had several folks who helped you along the way. So I'd like to give this space for you to recognize your mentors and, give them a nice little shout out. So I'll give you the floor.
Oh, absolutely. So there's so many, I should say, there's so many faculty and staff that I have crossed paths with in my time in higher education as a student. And there's literally not enough time to list everybody. And so I'm boiling this down to 3 very important people that to this day, I know I could call on if I needed anything, career advice or, just to share a happy moment, like, my daughter graduating from college, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I may have mentioned them all, but thank you for giving me the space to do it. Dr. Lauren Lee McIntyre, she was my McNair mentor. She taught me what it means to be a compassionate, caring, student-centered mentor. And also she taught me how to be a better mentee and really taught me how to advocate for myself and ask for help. I'm still not very good at it, but she was absolutely the most perfect mentor that I could have ever asked for at that moment in time. Second is Dr. John Seeley, who is my chair of my dissertation and my primary PhD advisor. And John really encouraged me to think about the big picture. He really allowed me to dive deep into some topics that I really wanted to know more about. And also he gave me some fantastic opportunities to really roll my sleeves up with regard to policy at the state level and what that looks like and how kind of, governmental relations work and things like that. He really just opened up my eyes to understand how to connect things, which would then help me much later, or not much later, but that would help me later in life when I got this job.
Wow.
And then finally, my third that I want to make sure to call out and mention is a big thank you to Dr. Josh Snodgrass, who was my GE supervisor, but then really also became an accountability buddy for me to finish my dissertation. He was a cheerleader. He also was just somebody who is like, he's like the most interesting person to me. He's done some really cool stuff in the world, and he's really just also taught me how to lead and be a leader in higher education, and to also lead with a good sense of humor. And sometimes when life is really hard, one of the best lessons, and I don't think he taught it to me explicitly. I think I just learned it from like social learning, from like watching him do it, modeling. But he always just, no matter how difficult things were, he would just laugh and like be like, yep, like, you know, just his sense of humor was incredible and really got us through the toughest times. And that is something that I keep with me. And it's like that's my secret weapon, is humor, you know, to get through the hard stuff. And that's because of Josh. And so those three people, if you're listening to this, I just can't tell you how much I deeply, deeply appreciate and am so grateful for you all.
Wonderful. What advice do you have for trio professionals who may be listening to this podcast?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this work is hard. This is really important, emotional, psychologically, like a lot of work in this moment in time that we're in. And I'm not even talking about with the students. Like that's the fun stuff. That's the fun part. Right?
Yeah. Right.
This is, you know, like, yeah, I just don't want anyone to get it twisted. Like this stuff is, you know, the stuff we're doing right now is hard work in the world. And it's incredibly important. And I think that's what also makes it feel harder or heavier, because we care about it a lot. I think I've never met another trio professional, I'm making some assumptions here, but I've never met another trio professional that is not completely dedicated. Like, honestly, like I'm just thinking back real quick flashback to our McNair Promising Practices Institute this year that was in New Orleans. It was an absolute blast. And being in a room with, you know, the majority of other institutional, you know, representatives of McNair programs in the country, the directors and other staff, it is so amazing and empowering and restorative, rejuvenating, all that, you know, to be with other folks who care this much. And also that comes with when you care this much about the work, it can come with a price, and it can come with a cost. And sure, the cost is sometimes on your own health and well-being. And that's the underlying current through all of my education has been health and wellness. That's sort of been the thread that's connected all of it together from when I was a hairdresser to now. The thread is that I care deeply about well-being, and well-being is connected to student success, and well-being is also connected to professional performance and longevity and sustainability. And so that's really, you know, thinking about other trio professionals. Right now, I just want to say, I see you. You're doing amazing work. We are doing amazing work. We're doing incredibly meaningful work. Speaking from an alumni perspective, we're doing incredibly meaningful, life-changing work. And we must also make time to rest and take care of ourselves, because this stuff is hard, and it can easily consume you when you care so much about it and you care so deeply about it. So that's my message, is really to give yourself permission to rest.
That's great advice. What about advice or words of wisdom that you have for trio participants?
Ooh, so many. It's hard to like tear down.
Yeah,
so
right.
many, right? This is like what I do for a living. I love this question, but it's also so hard.
Sure.
I have so much advice. I think one of the things I'm going to just see from the patterns that I've observed in our program over the years, and even through like my own cohort and my friends that have come out of the program, and talking, with other alumni, I think current participants in trio programs are, no matter what else is happening in higher, there's a lot shifts happening in higher education right now. And it is really common to feel like your identities and there's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of barriers to persisting. There's a lot of barriers to, to continuing on.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just say, like, don't give up. Trust the process. These programs have existed for a long time, and they work. Sometimes it's just sort of like trust the process, trust us as the trio staff to help and support you. And it really does work. The processes, the things that we teach, the vision, all of that works. It works. So trust, but it's hard to trust right now. So that's why I'm saying this. It really is hard, and a lot of our trio participants, myself included, come into our programs with trauma, complex trauma, with all different sorts of valid reasons for not trusting professionals and for not trusting adults. Mm-hmm. And so, I say it to, because it is something also that we have to build that trust with our participants so that they can really fully absorb the curriculum and the amazing resources and things that we have.
What is something that you are currently reading, watching, or listening to?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. Okay. I am currently listening to, so I do have a lot of books and I love them. However, I also have Audible, and right now, and I start my morning with this, Mel Robbins' new book called The Let Them Theory.
The Let Them Theory. Okay.
The Let Them Theory. And I'll just read you the little header. It says, a life-changing tool that millions of people can't stop talking about. It's true. It's incredible. So I won't do any spoilers, just in case there's anyone out there that's, in the process. And I'm not even done reading or listening to the Audible book yet. But it is amazing. And Mel Robbins is narrating it, and it's great. So it's almost like just listening to her podcast, but better. Mm-hmm. But that is the current one. I am a huge fan of books that are like self-help books or books that are psychology or neuroscience based. If I see one that looks interesting, I snag it. I love those. Mm-hmm. I'm always trying to, anything that has to do with health and wellness, probably not surprising now. I have a book on that. Yep. So this is the new, this is the one I'm currently listening to every morning. It is fantastic. It is definitely worth shouting from the rooftops. It's so good. And it's really helping me to think about how to apply this let them theory, which kind of has to do with detachment and mindfulness and also compassion. And it has to do with, or it's applicable, I should say, to, personal and professional life. So it's fantastic. It's great for anybody to read, and everybody should read it.
That's awesome. I love that. Great recommendation. Using only one word, describe yourself.
Curious.
I love that. It's a perfect, I think that's a perfect descriptor for you, especially with the educational path that you've taken, which is amazing.
Yes. Or you could have said non-committal would have been the other one. but that, just in an academic sense. I love so many things, and it's hard for me to stick with one thing. Honestly.
Absolutely, totally understandable. Dr. Christabelle Dragoo, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening, for sharing your trio journey from hairstylist to researcher and coming full circle now as a Trio McNair director. Thank you so much for being on this episode. Thank you so much. And I hope you can join us again for a future episode.
Thank you so much, Juan. It has been my pleasure and honestly a great joy in my life. This is such a privilege. This podcast means a lot to the Trio community, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. We have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guest sign off. Would you care to do the honors?
I would love to. Hi, this is Dr. Christabelle Dragoo, and I'm the director of the Trio Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program at the University of Oregon. Please go thank your congressional representatives for continuing to support Trio. Trio works.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a Trio program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Trio. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk Trio. We want to get your story to the public.
You just heard from our guest, Dr. Christabelle Dragoo, Trio alum and director for the Trio McNair Scholars Program at the University of Oregon. Thank you, Dr. Dragoo, for being on the podcast and for sharing your Trio journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Vialpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lamaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and The Trio Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. And myself, Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk Trio podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Friday, May 9th, 2025. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.